I came out, but like me coming out was just me saying, this is what it is. Not really, I never
Revealing
could pretend anything different. Like, there was no way. I was never really in a closet. And so hearing people deny and forsake the queer community, and then go to the gay bar and be dancing it up, no, Mary. No, Mary.
Infuriating.
Don't have me. I'm not working to protect anything. That was my outlook then. I think people should come out when they're ready. But bitch, don't be at the gay bar sucking dick on the thing and then be like, okay, are you all gonna keep it a secret and you have to, here's the story. No, I ain't telling a story. I'm not involved in that. Hey y'all, welcome back to Queer 101, the podcast where we talk about any and everything under the sun, including queer art, queer culture, and queer literature. I am Peppermint.
And I'm Hugh Ryan, aka Hugh the Historian.
Ow! Hugh, honey, I am so excited to be diving in today's topic. We are continuing our conversation from last week's fabulous episode with George Takei. But first, let's do a quick recap, just in case someone missed last week's episode and they want to, just get caught up. Even though the best way to do that is just to go back and listen to the episodes.
Because then you get to hear George's incredible voice himself telling us all of those stories from, yes, his memoir, but hearing them out loud for me was just like, oh my God, like a true icon talking about living through those experiences, the Japanese internment, being a closeted actor for most of his career, not really being able to come out until after the fight around marriage equality. I mean, those are some milestone moments in our community, and some of which, like the Japanese internment stuff, I don't know about you, but most of my friends had never really learned about that in history classes.
Surprise, surprise. And all of that, the queerness, the Japanese internment, the American atrocities, the continued American atrocities and imperialism, even internally of it all at Comic-Con.
At Comic-Con. As people are walking by in dinosaur outfits.
which at first may seem like a weird place to have this, but when you think about a lot of, not all of, but many of the comic book stories, as I go back through as adults, a lot of them are pulled from similar stories of American imperialism or just other countries doing terrible things. They hint at the empire versus the resistance. That's usually what's going on.
I interviewed a few years ago a writer from Marvel in the 80s, a woman who worked on the X-Men comics, and she said straight up, she was like, so much of this came from being around queer people, and this was a metaphor for queerness, and not just that, but like the looks, the style, the expressions, like they really were all the stuff that I was reading into it in like 1986 and being like, they feel gay. No, it was coming. So yeah, I think that Comic-Con, while it is absolutely a surprise to me that they were doing this, it's a natural fit, and the audience was great. I mean, they loved it.
They were fantastic, and we got to hear all about how, and I know for a fact that this was their first time for sure hearing, I believe it seemed quite apparent that this was the first time that they were hearing not only George's story in that moment, but then also the story of any Japanese American person talking about their experiences. Not only in the internment camps, but then also in the closet in the internment camps,
Yes, having to do those, as he called it, his 2 incarcerations, right? I mean, hearing about that part where he talked about his childhood and how they were rounded up at gunpoint and then whisked away, basically with no notice, having to pack, I think he said, like, a suitcase of their belongings, watching as their neighbors were waiting outside the door to take the things from their home, things that they were never able to recover. I mean, antiques that have been passed down in his family for generations, stolen and destroyed, and I mean, it just awes me, the strength and the tenacity that he has to survive that with the sense of humor that he had about it, and then to be able to tell that story to all of us. I mean, the horrors we can endure and the pain we can live through is remarkable. And it's something I think really we all need to be thinking about in this particularly awful moment in our country right now.
It's true. It's true. You know, I think we can all sort of, I mean, first of all, we can definitely take solace that we have people like George right now to listen to and to read their books and their stories. But I think a lot of people can relate. Yeah, a lot of people can certainly relate in that way when we're able to hear it in such an approachable sort of, you know, a presentation, especially considering a lot of the things that we're experiencing and witnessing right now. Let me ask you, do you remember, you know, and as you referenced the two the two prisons that George mentioned in the book, the literal internment camp and then also being in the closet. Do you remember when you first liked boys? Do you remember your first crush?
Okay. I have a very clear memory, which I don't think is like my first crush, but speaking of Comic Cons, Dungeons and Dragons was like remarkably popular when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. I don't know why or what. Certainly none of us understood how to play it. It had like far too many rules and we could barely count the numbers on the dice, you know? But we had all the books and we loved them. Everybody loved them. And I had like a book that nobody else had, and so I got to sit with the cool boys in the like back of the classroom one day at lunch as they were looking at all of the like half-naked ladies in the D&D books. And one of them, this boy Rory, who I had a total crush on, said something about how this woman was so hot, and I, without thinking about it, like I said, "So's he," referring to the guy, and I had known, you know, like up until that moment, I'm probably 8 at this point, I knew that those feelings were not acceptable, but it was like my first moment of saying something out loud and then watching people's faces change and being like, oh, I have screwed up here. I have bumped into some kind of wall, and I just like totally shut down, and I was never invited back to that table again. So that is always, I remember having such a crush on Rory, and then that particular moment, and how like I had kind of known it was not right, those feelings, that those were not things I should have or think about or share. But I always had the problem when I was a kid where like words jumped out of my mouth before I had a chance to think about it, you know? And then after that, I really shut down, and I stopped being like that. I stopped being so quick to speak, really. And so that, I probably was, 8? That would be my formative, like the moment that always returns to me. Looking at those Dungeons and Dragons guides and those little like elvish rogues. I feel like that was my type. What about you? Do you have like a first crush, a first moment?
You know, I'm thinking of myself around that age. I definitely had crushes. They must have come before the age of 8, but I guess around 8, maybe you're like in 2nd grade or something. Is that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Maybe something like that. And so, yeah, I think one of the people that I had a crush on. So I knew. I mean, there was never any question that I was like attracted to boys, right? And so, you know, like I had a crush on a classmate who, but it was for different reasons. I had a crush. A lot of the crushes that I had were out of the actions of individuals. I mean, I'm sure I thought that I was able to like recognize, you know, once my brain processed what society said was supposed to be attractive or not, based on Eurocentric standards of beauty. But I remember having a crush on a classmate who was really protective of me because I was getting bullied and teased. And so, and he was just like protective and very accepting. And I was like, "Hi, I'm in love with you." You know, I didn't say that, of course. I never expressed it to him. But that was in 2nd grade. And then as it goes on, it was usually people like that were like protective over me that I just found myself attracted to, which is like, I don't know. I mean, I just had a crush, you know, I was like, oh, that's who and I don't know if it's that I actually was infatuated or I just like wanted to be around them because that was who I felt safe around. I don't know.
Do you know? I'm curious. Do you know what happened to any of those people? Did they grow up to be queered, or did you lose track of them, or?
That's a good question. No, I don't know everybody that I had a crush on would have, because I had a crush on lots of people as the time went by. But that particular person did not grow up to be queer. And that makes sense, because if he had grown up to be queer, I mean, I don't really know at that time. It's not like we would have done anything at that such a young age. But I think if I wasn't around a lot of other people that I knew that were queer, that were out, that were as obviously queer as I was. But I probably I wasn't attracted to queerness in terms of a crush sort of way. I don't think, I don't really know. I was attracted to masculinity, which I always have been. Not that queerness can't be masculine. But at that age, the guys that I would have been attracted to would have just been like regular old basic ass guys. And that's what they turned out to be. Basic hetero cis. So that's my attraction, and I'm still trying to sort through that as a queer straight woman. But they just grew up and probably are just married with kids. That's their.
I think that was the main reason I got on social media when it first appeared, like when it was like
to see who was what.
Yeah, absolutely. It was also the only reason I considered going to like a high school reunion or anything like that. I was like, no, I want a list of the gay. It's like when you used to go to Wikipedia and to a celebrity's like page and see if they had a personal life section, because that meant they were queer. Facebook was
if they had that section, that meant they were queer.
Yeah, it was like nobody. I remember this, like early Wikipedia. I feel like you go to a celebrity, and if they had a personal life section, what that meant was either they were gay, or there were rumors about them being gay,
or they had something to say about it.
Yep. It was like the only, and now there's lots of personal life sections. Everybody's got one, but like I feel like that was like an early use of social media and social internet for me. Was definitely trying to figure out who was queer. When did they come out? If looking at pictures, because I went to a very small school, so it was like there were no out. I was the closest thing we had to an out queer student, and I didn't start coming out to anyone until I was 16. We had 3 teachers. We had an elementary school gym teacher who was queer. We had a middle school biology teacher, and we had a high school English teacher. Like each one as stereotypical as you can imagine. Do you know what I mean? Like that was it.
Yeah.
And they weren't out. Everybody knew. It was like chatty chat chat chat.
Oh, gosh. What about celebs? Did you have crushes on celebs? Because that's who we would like model so much of our everything after, and like get an understanding, like those people. Not that there was tons of out celebs back in the 80s and 90s, but did you have crushes on any?
I had 2, and
out
one
or not
to you. Out or not out. Well, but Prince was like incredibly important to me as a young person, because he seemed so queer and so beyond everything, and like just open to everything and exciting and like I don't know, the whole band around him, the Revolution, like they had such look and style, and it didn't matter if he said anything about his queerness, though I think I did assume, as a kid, I assumed he was gay because I didn't know anything. But that felt really important to me, that like he was there, and I always identified with Prince, always loved Prince songs, and felt like, but
rightly so.
Yeah. Like he was a figure where it felt like even though he was not out in any way, I felt like he was, like the living of his life. And on the other side, I would say that George Michael, I really, as a kid, was convinced he was out and gay. I thought, and it was when that, like, I was like, he's definitely gay, and then that video came out, the,
Jesus to a
Sometimes
Child?
the clothes do not make the man. What is that
song? Freedom.
Freedom. And that came out, and I was like, there, see, that's his coming out song. It was not. But
I mean, it was.
It was, right? It was. So that was,
I mean, in so many words, it was. He sort of oozed out of the closet. Yeah.
He set fire to that leather jacket surrounded by supermodels.
And it was in a closet.
In a literal closet. In a literal closet. Yes. 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 So I think I always was crushing on people who seemed like maybe like this is a difference in our identities and also our paths and our histories. Like I was always looking for people who seemed really fucking queer. Do you know? Like that those were the people I crushed out on. Was not like particularly masculine men. Like that always seemed threatening to me, freaky, scary.
Yeah.
You know? But like anyone who had a femi side, like that was where I as a young person was really drawn.
Well, the crushes that I had were probably really typical. And I guess that's because they were the celebrity crushes, because in my everyday life, I was more interested and attracted, drawn to people that had the actions of being a protector. And then the fantasy for me was, you know, as for everybody with celebrities, seeing celebrities that, like, you know, I thought were handsome, that I thought were, you know, attractive looking, and you know, something about them was beautiful or something. And then also the roles that they would, as I got older, it was the roles that they chose. I think that were sort of a blending. Like, yes, I can say so-and-so's good looking, but he would be my crush if he's played a role that demonstrated some of the characteristics and behaviors and traits that I was drawn to as a kid. So like a protector, especially if they chose a role that was like a man that was, you know, in love with a trans woman, which, what movie is that? I don't even know.
I was going to say, wait, what protect? Yeah.
Yeah, not even any. So I guess I didn't. But I remember the first time I was like, I didn't have a crush. I kind of had a crush, but didn't, was the guy who, not the guy, the character.
Okay.
The characters, some of the characters in Revenge of the Nerds. I don't know why I thought they were so attractive. And not all of them, not Booger, who was like nasty and spitting and farting and stuff. But like the two leads, you know, I was like, ooh. But then there was like that moment, that weird sexual assault moment where they like broke in and were spying, like set up cameras and videotaped the women in their shower, which was like a sex scene. So I was like, oh, but it was also obviously like they were like violating. I can't believe that was like funny.
I know. So many movies
so
back then, you go back
up.
and watch them now and you're like, wait, in that John Hughes scene, he like gives his drunk girlfriend to this other guy and it's a comedy moment? Like, we definitely got some fucked up sexual politics in
I know,
those
we had
movies.
some terrible, I don't know. Anyway, those were the crushes.
I'm curious. So when George was talking about his crush on Tab Hunter in It Rhymes with Decay, he talked about how watching Tab Hunter have to deal with being outed like affected him as an actor in his career. Did you did following queer celebrities, like how did that, as a young person who wanted to be on stage, who wanted to perform, like how'd that affect you?
I never really had an awareness of queer celebrities. You know, I mean, I think I'd always heard here and there that there were rumors here and there. But I do think that the Hollywood had just come up, speaking of Tab Hunter and like Anthony Perkins and everybody, like the Hollywood machine, the studio system, and then the Hollywood machine, as we've talked about in previous episodes, was really quick to like clean up any rumors or like change the story and probably work with the media to get stories sort of pulled from the papers and so like there wasn't really a paper trail that you could follow like there is today. Like we can access certain information and, you know, exactly. They didn't have that. And so there weren't a lot of breadcrumbs for me to follow, and I didn't have the tools to follow them, and I also didn't really care because I was like so focused on my own thing. I just thought, how am I going to survive the rest of this life isolated? You know what I mean? Like that was solely what I was thinking about. And my queerness was not really about my sexuality. It was mostly about my like gender identity. And so like it was really about like, how can I move about the world and balance not being a target, which I know that even lots of queer people and gay people go through that too. But like, there was no way for me to act socially acceptable and also realize, like, continue my journey. There was just no way, like, if I go, that's the journey, it's not going to look too good. So that was like really what took up most of my mind and my brain power. But I do remember hearing stories of certain celebrities who had dalliances, or worse meaning were accused of like harming or even murdering trans women. There's a handful of stories where we've heard of, that are rumored, of men interacting with trans women. Many of them were sex workers. These stories were about sex workers, or at least alleged sex workers, and alleged stories of, what these men would do, because I think the Hollywood machine in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s was not as quick to swoop in and sort of like manage these situations. And then I think it would be left up to that celebrity to do it on their own. And some of them, there are rumors of long-standing lore in the trans community about certain celebrities. I won't name on here, but there's one who just released some sort of documentary on Netflix, who was accused of pushing a trans woman, apparently his like repeat lover over of years, out the damn window and killing her.
What? Oh my God.
And the trans woman went out the window and she died. But like, the question is, who did it? And anyway, that's that. And so, yeah, sorry to take it there.
No.
So I didn't have a lot of celebrities to look up to.
I feel like that's what you heard about when, like, in like that time period. I can remember it was like arrests. Like so and so would be arrested, and they'd be like, I don't know how I ended up in
the car with that girl.
Prostitute. Yeah, over and over again, and you'd be like, come on now, or like,
that's what you would hear. Yeah. They were in these
Pee Wee Herman being arrested in like a porn theater for jerking off.
Oh yeah,
and like, he's like, I just had to use the bathroom, or things like that. And you'd be like, what?
Yeah, I was just asking. I went to ask what time it was.
For me, I don't know if you had this experience, but it felt like it made everything really like unstable. Like things that felt obviously true to me were then reported in ways where people were like, "Oh, they're not gay, they're not queer, they're not trans." It was just or like this is the one, I don't know why this is the one that always sticks with me, but Jodie Foster, like, donating to the Trevor Project throughout the 90s and being like, not gay, not talking about it. I just am a really nice straight person who gives, millions of dollars to this queer youth suicide prevention fund. And I was like, that's not real life. That's not real life. I'm sorry. Straight people don't care like that. She's a fucking lesbian.
I actually thought that they did.
I just did. I always felt like this. I felt like I was living in some sort of bizarro world where, like, the news would report these things, and you'd be like, "Wait, are we suspected to believe that story?"
Yeah, that there's no gay people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Not one. We can't find one.
No. It's just they're all just really like very theater. That's it. They're just very theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Obviously, but it did make it harder for people in our generation for sure. Do you think it's changing?
I was gonna say, I wonder. Like you have a backstage view, I think, to celebrity these days more so than most of us. So I'm curious about your thoughts on this. But I think so. Like I think that it is. Well, two things. I think one, it is definitely easier to be out and have certain kinds of careers. Like it's still hard, I think, to have those like romantic lead blockbuster careers and be an out queer person, though some people are managing it. And two, I think that what has really changed is that for a lot of young people who are just getting into the arts or theater, it's easy to come out then. And so by the time they get to the place where in a previous generation they'd have to make the decision to come out because now they have a career that's starting, they're they've been out for so long, you know, that they're starting their careers. And I don't know how that affects those careers, but like I feel like I see young, like especially the people who make the jump from social media YouTube star, you know, to like celebrity actor or singer. It's like some of them I feel like have come out so much earlier in a way that was just not possible before, that they never imagined life in the closet.
But there still seems to be a considering how many people are famous these days, and granted, I guess it depends on which tier you are. Like if you're mainstream Hollywood or music industry, I think that's sort of one category. And then there's like sort of like the internet celebrities, reality celebrities, and of course I think there's more people that are internet and you know, internet slash influencer or reality celebrities, because they're not actors, right? Who are just kind of paid to be themselves, or they make money for being the most outlandish version of themselves. There are certainly those people, but then I do think that in terms of like the classic Hollywood celebs that are actors and musicians, there's certainly, I think, more out musicians now. There's out people. There's more than there were, for sure. But it is really interesting to hear like people sort of waiting until it seems like, especially in music, people sort of wait until later in their career or later in life to come out, to the point where they're no longer like relying on, I guess, the younger demographic of young teenage girls who statistically end up spending a little more money on entertainment. And I guess that's what that is, you know. It's wild. But I certainly do remember being backstage and there's sort of being an unspoken, oh, so-and-so's gay, they're here, whatever. But I used to be real around the turn of the century.
It feels weird to say that, but...
Yeah. I remember being very hostile backstage to people that I knew were in the closet. I know that's bad. But I remember thinking, bitch, I'm out here. I was never... I came out, but like me coming out was just me saying, this is what it is. Not really... I never could pretend anything different. Like, there was no way. I was never really in a closet. And so hearing people deny and forsake the queer community and then go to the gay bar and be dancing it up, no, Mary.
Infuriating.
Don't have me. I'm not working to protect anything. That was my outlook then. I think people should come out when they're ready. But bitch, don't be at the gay bar sucking dick on the thing and then be like, okay, are you all gonna keep it a secret and you have to, here's the story. No, I ain't telling her story. I'm not involved in that. Because that was too much for me, especially considering that those people were not the Jodie Fosters who would be donating to the Trevor Projects of the world at the time. They were just like, I don't know anything about gay.
That would make
nothing. They distanced themselves.
Yeah. I think a lot about, there's this writer who I really love, Alexis Pauline Gumbs, and she's like an incredible like black queer theorist, thinker, historian, everything writer, and she talks about the never straight as being like the leaders in the queer movement sort of always, that the people who couldn't or wouldn't hide, the folks who like it was not an option to be in the closet or to come out of the closet, it's simply their existence was so much endangered. And I feel like part of what pissed me off about the celebrities you're talking about is like they depended on people like you and other like trans folks or genderqueer folks or people who were just really flaming, you know, or really butch to take all the flack while they got all the like flowers, you know.
They got the satisfaction. They got the satisfaction of having the sex workers, queer sex workers and queer people, not people in nightlife adjacent as their like entertainment at the club, because they would go to the gay bars, their sex partners as sex workers or whoever, like they would be partying with these people and then go have a moment, which is totally normal. And then the activists during the day who were out there fighting, and you're fighting and marching, but there's no one next to you.
Yeah,
So,
and certainly no big celeb leading the parade, right? Like, there's
yeah,
not.
I march across that damn Brooklyn Bridge for marriage equality. I ain't getting married. Who's,
Yep.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is another thing that has changed. But I used to love every June trying to guess like which famous celebrity who's been flirting with coming out was going to come out, and I feel like we're sort of like past that point now. They don't wait till June, and there's not. But I used to love it. Like, it was like I wanted to have like a betting pool and be like, okay, is this the year we get a statement from so and so, and that, I think, I don't know. Probably there are still A-list actors who have not come out ever in their career who are going to come out at some point. But I feel like there are fewer and fewer and fewer of those. The ones who have remained in the closet this long at this time who are A-list, like, are just, it feels like they are never coming out, But I don't know.
I agree, but there's also this interesting phenomenon, and it may not be brand new, but, there's certainly people who have come out of the closet and made a thing of coming out of the closet and, like, made it a part of their public persona and even made it a part of their platform fully, like JoJo Siwa, who have sort of gone back. And I don't know how JoJo identifies now, but I don't know how people like JoJo Siwa identify now. But I know that they're like, them being a lesbian was like a part of their platform. Yeah. And now I know that they have I think they're married or have a partner who's a man, and sort of distance themselves from the community, which makes sense because the community is being attacked. But it is like, damn.
Yeah, it still sucks to see it. I was assigned to do a story like 15 years ago that was killed, and it was never published, but I did a lot of interviews for it that was basically talking about something that was kind of the reverse of it, but it was right at the start, like 2010-ish time, 2009, where there was this brief moment where a bunch of, like, I hate to put it this way, but like washed up and non-celebrities who had not made it in the straight world were suddenly thinking like, I'm going to release an album now and come out. Or gay porn. Like, they were calling it the rainbow parachute. It was like, well, my career has failed, so I'm going to wait to come out until I've got an album and then depend on, like, suddenly being like, I'm going to be the face
the queer
of
community
gay.
will rally behind me.
Yeah.
And then whatever the queers like, the straights eventually like.
Yeah, that was my version of like what you were saying. I was like, these people waited until their career had absolutely failed, and then they were like, now I'm going to come out and you're going to love me. Whereas before, when I thought I had a chance to make it in the straight world, I was never going to, and I was like, oh, piss me off.
Yeah. I certainly viewed people who had the opportunity to come out, the financial security in terms of, or at least the career that they could lose, and that was my own perspective. Like that they had made, they were not necessarily like the homeless gay person that's engaged in survival sex work. These are Hollywood celebrities who have a certain level of safety from a certain perspective, and they are making the journey longer and heavier for us. And so I had that same sort of opinion. But we have to look at people like George who it just wasn't safe, and now it's coming back around again, like with JoJo Siwa, who whatever. We're seeing the fact that they're wanting to name trans people or making announcements that they want to designate the trans community as a terrorist. I can understand why people might not want to come out as trans now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it is scary, and they are people. Like, I think I can be very quick to, like, forget sometimes that even a celebrity is, like, a person with feelings, and they might have someone in their life who they are afraid to let down by being who they are, and that they are scared themselves in a lot of ways, and financially dependent on audiences, and oftentimes, like, supporting a family or, generations of family through their careers. Like, it's absolutely true. And there are those folks out there now being great advocates. And that, I think, is, like, very exciting to me. Watching the folks who have never sort of, like, I think about Kehlani, like, never stepped away from being a queer advocate and icon. And, like, that, I don't know, that also was not around when we were younger. And that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the people who end up being, and we've talked about this before, I've certainly mentioned it, but like, the people who are end up being the most radical, I think end up having a perspective where they can see that the system that they need to rebel against, or that they feel compelled to rebel against, is sort of all connected. And so the one that's holding people in the closet, or asks people to be in the closet in order to have a career, is also the same system that makes money off of like other types of oppression. And so Kehlani is 100%, as far as I can tell and as far as I've witnessed, very much not only in her activism game and era, not that that's a phase at all, but like coming to her own as an activist and being able to meld that together with her art, being outspoken on advocating for Palestine and the Congo and the Sudan, against American imperialism, and like, American imperialism and conquest, and Western imperialism, is probably more accurate, is what wants people to be in the closet, is what wants, the sort of Christian binary of gender and sexuality to be in place. Like that's what wants that,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that, I love those celebrities who see it. And I'm reading right now Harvey Fierstein's memoir, I Was Better Last Night. And he talks about being aware of all of this from a very early age. Similar to you talking about never being able to be in the closet, and coming out in the 60s and pushing this. And those are the people, those are the icons that I definitely am like, the ones who've been doing this all the time, and they impress me. And so when I can sometimes be a hater, I can be a little bit of a killjoy, and I got to remind myself of the people who are doing the work that I love. And yeah, I know we got to wrap this up, but do you have any other people that are like that kind of person for you, like an icon, someone who you're like, they've been doing it, they do this, they do the work, I've been impressed by them, celebrities that are like really iconic in that way?
I can't think of any off the top of my head that we haven't already spoken about. Yeah. But I certainly, the what I admire are those qualities, the people who are, because I think we're moving into a new era. There was certainly in the moment of time when I was like, oh, that's a gay rights activist, and that's great, and I love what they do. But now I am very interested, especially considering, we want to avoid the same types of conditions that George and his family experienced, at the beginning of the 20th, in the first part of the 20th century. We want to avoid those things. Yeah. It takes somebody speaking out against those very types of systems. And so people that are outspoken against Western imperialism and, all of the warmongering and war profiteering and war crimes and atrocities and genocides around the world that we have we as Western civilization have our hands in and continue to have our hands in. That is the type of advocacy and activism that I think is going to ultimately liberate the queerness of it all. And it's helping bust up the caste system that exists, that keeps being reinforced and reestablished. And so that's what I look for in my activists these days. Like I'm choosing them from the store or something.
Your draft pick. This is your your
exactly.
Fantasy
That's
league
my
activism.
team.
Yeah. And if you're listening right now and you want to drop us a comment about like who's your team, who are your celeb crushes, who are the activists that you love, who are doing this work, who see those intersectional connections, like let us know. Who are the people who excite you? Who are the people who showed you the way or built the path that you're walking down?
Yes, please do that. And while you're at it, mark your calendars for next Tuesday. Every single week we release new episodes of our show, and it is appointment television. It's not television, but, it's appointment listening, I would say. So please make sure that you comment, like, subscribe, follow. Click the bell for notifications if you're watching on YouTube. 5-star rate this if you're listening to our beautiful voices. And share this with your friends, please. I know that's really sort of like the perfunctory request that people hear, but it really does help our podcast grow. It helps us reach new voices. It helps us maintain our platform and be able to continue to bring these stories to you, these conversations to you, and it doesn't cost you a thing. Right now we're not collecting subscriptions, and so we are hopeful that we can just have you press that button because it is a huge help to us. Anyway,
and we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you all so much for
listening. We will see you next Tuesday. Ow! Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by us, Peppermint and Hugh, produced and edited by Josh Rosenzweig, with original music composed by Nell Balaban.
If you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and a review. It really helps others discover the show.
You can stay connected and join the conversation by following us at Peppermint 24/7 or write to us at questions@queer101podcast.com.
Thank you for listening. And remember, our history is your history. Stay proud, stay curious, and we'll see you next time on Queer 101.